Welcome back to the Nueva Vida Group podcast. We are a privately owned real estate advisory company that supports the high net worth and the ultra high net worth community on real estate acquisition, project management, and developments. And today we're going to have a really interesting conversation with Steve Thompson, who owns Atlas Bridge Wealth, and they are specialists in retirees moving to Portugal. So a really, I suppose, key subject with a lot of our audience. So we hope you enjoy this, and we'll roll into it. So it would be great for you to give us and the audience an overview of your experience, including the career journey you've been on and why you set up Atlas Bridge Wealth. I think personally our clients would resonate really well, I think, with your track record and your experience. It'd be great just to get a full insight from where you've started and where you are now.
Well, how long have you got?
We've got about 55 minutes left.
I came into the industry in 91, many years ago. So I'm showing my age at 52 now. But I spent, 35, 36 years in this industry. My career started in the UK, where I spent probably the first decade working for a very large company called Aegon. But during that 35 years, I suppose, I spent a number of years overseas. So, I worked in the Middle East, for example, for 8 years, working for a big Italian insurance business called Generali. So, so 35 years is a long time. But during that time, I've advised, amazing families through multiple market cycles, bull markets, bear markets, crashes, recoveries, all sorts of periods of euphoria, which unfortunately we're not going through right now. Yeah. And periods of fear, I think, is where we are right now. And that experience very much shapes how I advise people today. So, throughout my career, my focus has always been on private clients, predominantly. So high net worth families, businesses, owners of said businesses. And ultimately, just to help them make really good decisions, especially at important moments. And I think I've learned over the years that those outcomes most are rarely driven by short-term market performance, and that's the key denominator, if you like. Markets rarely define success. So selling a business or stepping into retirement, particularly in Portugal. You're moving country, right? Planning how wealth passes to the next generation when you're here. Those decisions really are important, and timing and structure is incredibly important too. So I put a lot of work into that. And it's kind of how Atlas Bridge came about. So I think it's an itch that I've had for many years. When I said I worked in the Middle East, I worked in the Middle East twice. I went back after COVID. We had this desire to go back to Dubai, where I was advising out there in Dubai. And it wasn't the same going back the second time, but it did create a platform in my head that I wanted to do what I'm doing now with Atlas Bridge. So it was very much created deliberately over the years, working across various markets, as I've said, and meeting some amazing people, I think, as well, particularly in Dubai, where it's very collaborative and everybody wants to help. That's been fabulous for me. So
it's what it's all about, isn't it? I think what you've just said there resonates so closely with our clients and the people we work with. I don't think I've met many people that are doing anything quickly, or they might be planning for a while and then they can move and execute quickly when they're buying or looking at a project. But it's all a long-term plan. That's certainly our experience for sure, and that's cross-border from Middle Eastern clients through to British. Literally, as everyone we sort of engage with around the world seems to have a very similar mindset. I guess that's how they ride out these cycles as well. I think they seem to always have such a positive mindset, even if you put on the news this morning and think, oh my gosh, what's going on? But actually, their minds elsewhere, thinking about that long-term plan. A bit like you have with Atlas as well. It resonates there too.
Yeah, absolutely right, Jack. You have to have the ability to, certainly from an investment and a wealth management perspective, is drown out a lot of the noise, because essentially it is just noise. You can go from A to Z, but there's a lot of the alphabet in the middle that you want to try and avoid, and there's an emotional connection to that as well. So we can see what's going on with Donald Trump and not getting the Peace Prize has upset him, right? So other things going on with Greenland.
Where he was given it.
He's not particularly happy about how things are playing out, and these things have a habit of sorting themselves out. We don't want to go to war with the US, clearly. So look, Atlas Bridge came around to accommodate many of these high net worth families that I'll talk about later. But the fact is that they are going through these kind of major life transitions, right? So they need their hands held, even at the typical age that I tend to deal with, which is kind of early 60s to late 70s, and they want a fair business to work with, someone that doesn't want to maximize fees and take high commissions, and they just want to trust somebody that will do a good job and invest in their future. So Atlas Bridge works on sort of private client standards, essentially. So I'm UK qualified private client level 6. So in the UK, that fee-based approach is really big, and rightfully so. We don't charge exorbitant fees. I certainly don't here.
What attracted you personally to Portugal, and what are the main, I suppose, benefits you've found since moving there, both lifestyle-wise and especially for business?
Well, I've been coming to Portugal since I was, as they say in Scotland, a wee boy. Probably, I think I first came out here when I was 12 or 13, so 40 years ago, which is really scary. And if you walk around parts of where I am in Cortera, not a lot's really changed. It's still that sort of image, if you like, is still there. There's some new buildings where we are. But Portugal has always had a massive appeal, not just personally, but professionally, obviously because of the ideas that we referred to earlier. But, from a business perspective, yes, this is new to me, but certainly from a life, family, holidaying perspective, it's not new at all. I just think the country offers something that's quite rare, that sort of quality of life, and the all-round. Yes, it's become a bit more expensive, particularly with property here, but it's got great food, great climate. The healthcare is good. You've kind of got this kind of safety aspect, which we took for granted in Dubai, because Dubai, is such a safe place. You've seen the jokes, the videos on Instagram where you leave your mobile at the side of Sheikh Zayed Road and you come back in a month and it's still there.
Yeah.
You kind of have that here. There's not a lot of activity around. You don't really feel like, you're looking over your shoulder here. So the most important thing, I think, is the age demographic. So I think most people that typically holiday here now are the ones that want to slow down. They've got that mental bandwidth that they're carrying and they want to slow everything down, right? So being based here, from a commercial aspect and a business aspect, it suits me perfectly, because the type of client that I'm managing is that demographic. I'm having conversations, genuinely joined up conversations with these individuals that are either here or considering moving here. So yeah, I think the country offers all the right things, and then you factor in the tax regimes that the government have provided for the last 15, 16 years, NHR and NHR2. That's where the real financial value, the planning aspect, comes from. So the country just ticks all the right boxes, I think. And let's be honest, we like our wine and our food, right? Most people do. And you can't really get much better than the south of Portugal. Not that the north of Portugal isn't bad, because the whole country is beautiful. Lisbon's still my favorite place. Absolutely love Lisbon to bits.
Well,
we love Lisbon.
Comporta is one of our favorite places. We've been there.
It's such a beautiful country. In a weird way, it reminds me of Scotland, where I'm from. You can be in the Algarve, fine. You jump in the car, 20 minutes, you're in the middle of nowhere. And Edinburgh was like that. You can go outside Edinburgh for 20 minutes and you could be in the middle of just beauty. So yeah, I think Portugal has everything, certainly from a lifestyle point of view. And
I suppose it's just another thing as well. I suppose most of your clients, they've been traveling to Portugal for years anyway, haven't they? It's obviously a destination that they love, so they know everything, they know all the benefits about it. So that must be a massive plus if they are already convinced and love everything about the country.
Yeah, it's an odd thing. I've got lots of Scottish friends here, and not because I've gone actively looking for Scottish friends. I'm going to a Burns night on Saturday, which is a great networking opportunity for me. But many of the Scots that live here are actually friends that I've known for 30 years. It's the oddest thing, and I keep bumping into them. I'm like, oh my gosh, I used to work. I used to come into your office. Like, most of them are actually financial planners. Weirdly, that are selling their businesses and they're moving here. So it has that kind of community here that's really special. I mean, you can go to Spain. My mum's got a house in Spain. Alicante's lovely. You've kind of got that whole coastline is stunning. But Portugal has its niche, I think, and it's kind of its own beauty. And the people here are lovely. The Portuguese people are so friendly. So I think I'll see my days out here as well, quite frankly. I love the country in the UK. It's still my home, and Scotland's a wonderful place to live, but Portugal's fabulous.
Yeah, we come across lots of clients that have holidayed in Portugal. Also, and it's exactly the same in Spain. They've either it's always either one or the other. They've always had a track record of going there, and lots of them, the principals especially, have been there as kids or as sort of teenagers, and they've got special memories, and they keep pulling them back. And then you sort of meet them further down in life when they're thinking about retiring, because we do a lot of work in that space, and with a lot of retirees buying holiday homes or relocating, and they are instantly drawn to Spain or Portugal. And when you get into the conversation about where, it's always, oh yeah, my friend's got a house here, or my other friends have got a house on here. Quinta do Lago is a prime example of that. That's a tiny little pocket where everyone quite literally knows everyone. It's a very special place. And we love Comporta. I mean, but the golf there is off the
We haven't
charts.
mentioned golf yet, but obviously Portugal is renowned for having some of the best golf courses as well. So that's also why we love it.
It is. I used to come here with my dad playing golf, funnily enough. So same golf courses are still here, and they're great. And I think for me, it's got that comfort thing. When you come here, you feel comfortable. You know the place. You recognize the area and the community. It has that kind of, that almost like wearing an old slipper, if you like, when you come here. It's like a second home, I guess, for me.
Yeah. But so we've obviously discussed retirees. It'd be good to know more, typically the type of clients that you work with, and how you're sort of advising them, and just understand more about your clients and the right fit for you.
Yeah, that's really important. It's a good question, because I'm not, for me, it's about, I'm probably very similar to you guys. It's about quality, not quantity. And I mean that with the utmost of respect. I mean, I never push a client away or a prospect to become a client. I always make sure they find a home with the right firm. I've done that recently. So we predominantly advise families and established families. And I'm dealing with a very large family in the UK right now, extremely wealthy, £1 billion family office, actually. So, that's not an everyday occurrence, but typically north of €1 million, anywhere up to 100 million would be sort of the investable asset. When they're sort of relocating to Portugal, they want to buy property. They don't often just buy one, they want to buy one or two, or maybe three. And they want to structure their lives to spend sort of meaningful time in Portugal. So, what's important, I think, these clients, Jack, they think long term. They're not here, they're not letting the tax tail wag the dog, right? So they're not thinking about moving from the UK to Portugal for 18 months because, Rachel in accounting is thinking about slapping on a wealth tax. I mean, that's not what they're trying to do. I've had conversations around that. But what they're thinking is long term. So they're not just asking, can we move, but they're asking, how do we move? And importantly, how does it affect our pensions and our tax position and our estate planning? Because inheritance tax laws have changed in the UK, and that's a long-term income requirement. So I mean, I'm not an immigration person either. I work with an exceptionally good immigration consultant. So from a residency perspective, most of our success has come through the golden visa, route, I guess, which has been pretty attractive, I would argue, because of its flexibility. And these are the types of families that absolutely can afford, to invest that money, because it's a large outlay. €500,000 in anybody's world is a lot of money, and it needs to be managed properly. And let's be honest, if you've not been coming to Portugal as long as I have, you might not have that sort of trust factor with the country, and you're dealing with another government, for example, who frankly like to change their supporting government as often as they can. So, and I suppose just as a sort of segue into something that I've been planning personally is my UK registration, because, I'm happy to sort of say this now that, I'm due to go live with the UK network and be on the register in the UK under the Financial Conduct Authority. That's really important because, it's quite a big development from my perspective, but it allows me to take stewardship of a client's financial affairs before they move here. Okay. And that's quite a rare thing in Portugal. Most advisors come here and they've kind of, no disrespect, they're dealing with what's in the UK, in Portugal, which is Portuguese tax residents, and their blinkers are on, and most of them do an okay job. But they're ignoring that transition, coming out of the UK gate and into the Portugal gate. And that there is quite a lot of work to be done before that happens. So whilst my role isn't immigration, it is financial architecture, I guess. I work alongside, some really good immigration people, and I let them do what they do, but I stay in my lane. And in actual fact, 1 in 2 people that come to Portugal tend to repatriate. It's quite an interesting number, 50%. It's quite a high figure.
Yeah, that is high. Yeah, very high. It's interesting, isn't it? Because, I think to be able to advise them well in advance. So if you're, able to operate in the UK, advise them long term and set out those sort of milestones in that plan, that's a real advantage for clients because they are thinking long term, like you say. But I think to have that synergy between 2 locations as well. One thing we find in our business, we work with, like you, we're not immigration experts, but we do have, retained counsel with, the finest and best advisors, in Spain, in Portugal, in working globally to help with that sort of stuff. So I think the fact that you've got that working alongside that long-term planning, I think that's a real advantage for clients for sure.
I think so. I think it's that hand-holding thing that I refer to. Everybody, when you're dealing with a lot of money moving, even just doing a foreign exchange transfer, it's quite scary. If I've got a friend that's buying a house just now in Verdelogo, and he's moving about €2.5 million over the course of the next sort of 6 to 8 weeks or whatever. And that's quite a worry because you think that things can go wrong, right? And you want to make sure that if I'm giving him a recommendation to use a particular FX partner, that sits on me because I recommended it to him. So I'm trying to build that trusted world of Steve Thompson, Atlas Bridge Wealth, the UK connection. But everything that I do is very particular, and the individuals that I work with are very, very, very well researched because you don't want.
I think it's so important,
down, right?
No, I mean, and when things do fall down, it can happen. It happens in our business and transactions. We don't lose 2.5 million, just to be very clear. But things fall down. Timing slip, especially timing's a big one. But I think to have those sort of trusted partners that you can rely on is very, very, very important. But it's really important for the clients, and we, on our side of the business and what we do, we're very transparent with our clients. So we'll say we're working with X, this is what we're doing, keeping people fully in loop of the timeline so that everyone's part of that process. I think for retirees, like you've mentioned, all of these touch points we've just discussed are so important.
Yeah, and that's a good point in that I take a lot of time to almost sound a potential client out to see if there's a fit, because it has to work both ways. I have to like them as well as they like me, in a sense that I'll give them my absolute best. And it's sometimes you just have to be honest with the prospect and say, I don't think there's a fit here.